Hemp Wizard products are proudly used by former New England Patriots linebacker Brandon Spikes, Suicide Silence guitarist Mark Haleman, Canadian actor Jackson Rowe, Mr. Grimm and Noctis the drummers of Walking Corpse Syndrome, guitarist and vocalist Bub Heaston and bassist Ted Wilson of Black Sasquatch, guitarist and vocalist Adam Hines of Fester, Aaron Witzel, guitarist of Cropsy Maniac, Roy Boy, host of the Licking County Metalheads podcast, Crash Fistfight and Maxine Maxwell, host of the Musicians Hangout podcast, Jeff Towlinski, host of the Hard Rockin' Sports Show. You too can give your beard the magic touch and treat your skin to the finest. Visit hempwizard.net.
Get ready! Get ready!
And that's my cue to start the show. Welcome to another edition of the Hard Rockin' Sports Show, live from high atop Hard Rockin' Sports Studios in beautiful scenic Monroe, New Jersey. We are your 2 hour weekly get-togethers where we bring you all the biggest news around the worlds of hard rock, heavy metal, of course, the wide world of sports. And guys, welcome to Thursday night, January the 25th. That's right, January 25th in the year of our good Lord 2024. And we hope you've had a great week or so. We were off last week. I had a meeting. I had a work thing last week. But I'm back, and I'll be joined shortly by my partner, Mr. Jeff Tomlinski. We got a big show for you tonight, guys. Lots happening. So obviously we had divisional football playoffs last week. Some decent games, some not so great games. We got championship games this weekend. That's right, AFC, NFC championship games, 4 to make it to 2 to play in the big dance in February. That's right, big February. I think that's a February 12th game. No. I think it's February the 11th. That's right, February 11th in Las Vegas, the first Super Bowl in Las Vegas. We'll see who gets to play in there. We'll talk about last week's games, this week's games. We got the coaching carousel has kind of slowed a little bit. We got Raheem Morris signed by the Falcons. Brian Callahan gets the Titans job. What's his name? Jim Harbaugh gets the Chargers job. And a very famous name has not made the pile yet. And it's very interesting that to think that a certain legendary coach might just get shut out of this hiring cycle. Will he take any job? Will he take a year off? Will we see this gentleman on TV? Maybe he will join another organization for a little while, kind of a consultant role. Or is he done? We'll get to all of that. But the big thing for me tonight, we're going to start the show off. Well, we won't start the show off this way. We'll wait. We have a guest at 7:30 who will be popping up to help us celebrate 40 years. What's up, Adam Hines? My man Adam and the Fester Boys. I got a lot of good videos. I didn't get a chance to download them and put them on the show, but we will get them on next week. I have made myself a note. I am getting back into playing music videos before. We're going to start the first few weeks with Adam Hines and Fester. And I got a bunch of other videos that people have sent me, so I'm going to get a lot of videos up start next week. My goal for February is we're going to go back to the old school days of interviews and videos and everything else, and not just me and Jeff talking, but back to where I was going. We got the 40th anniversary of Hulkamania, as I got my Hulkamania hat on and my Hulk shirt. You see, let me get it on there. There you go. That's right. It's 40 years. I think it's January 23rd, 1984 was the birth of Hulkamania. And Will Cloak, our good buddy, will be joining Jeff and I about 7:30. So let's get the show kicked off. We'll get Jeff on. We'll get my pops on. He's hanging in there, and then we'll get Will Cloak, and we'll do a lot of stuff. We got football, plenty of it. We'll talk baseball Hall of Fame. We got some Ozzy news. We're going to talk Priest and Maiden, and whatever else pops into our little fiendish minds. So again, glad to be back with you all, and looking forward to 2 hours of great talk with my buddy. And let's get him on. He is, of course, my best bud for 40 plus years, and the sexiest man on his side of the screen, and a bass player who's always looking to play. My man, Hefe. What's up, Hefe?
What's going on, man?
Shot out of a cannon tonight, my man. Shot out of a cannon.
I hear you. I done something this week.
You done something this week?
Yes, I done.
What'd you done something this week?
Got another base coming.
Come on.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. You realize you can only play one at a time, right?
I do, but one is gone. But one is on its way out.
All right. So you're not adding to the collection. You're just altering the collection.
On a side, yeah, something like that. Yeah, but it was one that I could not pass up on.
All right. Well, listen, good for you. I'm always happy when you're happy. When you show up smiling, I'm a happy guy, so I'm happy to see that. But Jeff, there's only really one good way to start off a Hard Rocket Sports Show, and that is, Jeff, how was your week?
Oh, it's Thursday, and it was a long week. Yes, it was. Starting off with stupidity and then ending with a new doctor visit tomorrow.
Oh.
Yeah, well, no. My old doctor died.
Oh, yes, I do know that. Kind of scary when your doctor dies.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to die. It's just you don't want to really. You kind of hope they retire and fade away, and then you don't hear about them dying. But
yeah, you hear that he died when he's like 90 something.
Yeah, you have an active doctor who died.
Yes, he was my. How are you, Adam? Yes, he was my active doctor, and the last time that I saw him, he was complaining that his back hurt. They put me in a room, and then instead of him coming into the room, they took me to him, and he was in his office, and he had a hard time moving around. And he was like, "Oh, my back is killing me," and this, that, and the other thing. I was like, "Well, I hope you feel better." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll feel better." And
what if he said to Jeff, "I have to cut our appointment short. I have to go to the doctor."
Listen,
that would be an interesting conversation.
Evidently, if he went to the doctor, maybe he'd still be here. I don't know.
It's very true. Maybe you should have got your doctor's appointment.
It makes you reevaluate things and be like, maybe I should take this shit just a little bit more seriously at times.
Yeah, I would say.
Like here's a man that had to have some idea of what was going on.
Yeah, if you think anybody who recognized the signs of I got to get to the doctor, it would be the doctor.
Yeah, like for years he's telling me what to do, and then.
Yeah, maybe you should have been giving him some advice.
Yeah, well, you know what? My first order of advice would be like, don't go to you because you're dying, and right now it seems as though that I'm not.
Yeah. Well, maybe he should have went to him for a day. He's keeping you afloat. Yeah.
Well, listen, he was a very non-evasive kind of guy.
Gotcha.
He wasn't looking to put fingers where they don't belong and send you all kinds of different things.
It's always a good thing when try to violate you a little bit.
Yeah, when everything stays intact.
That's true.
It's a good thing.
That's very true. Thing. Very, very true. We got a lot of people paying attention to us right now, Jeff, and we got a lot to get to this week. There's a lot of football. We had the Sunday Audible last week, and the Sunday Audible will return this Saturday morning, and we'll talk about this week's games probably a little more in depth than we probably will. We'll probably spend a little more time talking about coaches and who wound up where. But we will touch base on last week's games and this week's games.
Well, I don't know. What he didn't enough water. What is that? Drink enough water? You mean? Hey,
come on, Will. You got to come bigger than that. First gal doc, it was for that finger. Adam, I want to tell you, your gal doc. I think she was transitioning.
Ooh. And that wasn't a finger.
You didn't drink enough water. Yes.
Well, actually, Will, you know what? I think he needed some milk. You know what I'm talking about? That might have helped him out a little bit more.
Will's going to be joining us at 7:30 for a little WrestleMania talk, and he brought this up, so I thought it was only fair to have him on with us. And so again, I'll always remember when I think of the birth of WrestleMania. Let's say the birth of Hulkamania, not WrestleMania, Hulkamania. it will always be in Jeff's living room watching Jeff apply the camel clutch to Joe Gansas right after we watched the match, and Joe saying, that's not a hold. I can break that hold. And Jeff go, you can't break that hold. And Jeff nearly snapping Joe's back in 3 spots as he applied the camel clutch.
I am so glad that you remember that.
Oh my God.
Because I vaguely remember it, and it's so vague that I couldn't even tell you anything that happened.
Oh my God.
I can almost see it happening.
Yes.
But it's like cloudy.
My brother was there. Your brother obviously was there. We were in your living room. It was a Saturday morning. We were watching we were actually watching it for the first time. I don't know if we had heard about it already, but we were watching the match and it was over. And Joey made a comment about, that's not a real thing. He can break that hold. And you said, you can't break that hold. And next thing you know, you're in the middle of your living room. Joey's back is
walk us through it. How did this? He willingly let me do this?
Yes. Joey laid on the floor, and you got on his back, and you put him in a camel clutch. And the idea, Joey said he could break the camel clutch, and you swore he couldn't be done. And ultimately, you were right because Joey was purple, and his spine was curled in about almost to 90 degrees.
He looked like a potato chip.
Yeah, he was. And I just remember going, I should have been saying, Jeff, you got to stop. You're going to break Joey's spine. And I remember not being able to breathe because I was laughing so hard. At the end, I almost going to guarantee this might be urban legend, but you said, I told you can't break it. As Joey writhed in pain.
And sometimes we say, man, thank God we didn't have fucking camera phones back then. But it was moments like that.
Yes.
We would have got the thing loaded in time.
Oh my God. Yeah.
How long did he take before he tapped out?
It wasn't long. It definitely wasn't long. It was. I don't know if he even tapped out. If he could have tapped out. I just think at some point you let go. But I won't be sure of that. But for sure, I remember Joey challenging basically that ain't real, and you said it's real, and Joey said, all right, I can break it, and you did it. So
do you see the commercial now for
which one?
For insurances? Where they do the instant replay?
Yes.
How would you like if that was like a real thing that when we talk about something like that,
yes,
that you'd be like, throw the red flag, let's go for the instant replay.
If we only could, my friend, if we could only go back and see that again.
Oh my God.
But again, that to me was the birth, and that will always be the birth of Hulkamania because, up until then, it was almost like that day, wrestling went from black and white to color.
But which exactly was the birth of Hulkamania?
Was
Hogan winning the belt or me putting Joey in the camel clutch?
Well, I would say for us, it was Joey getting in, putting the camel clutch because while we were celebrating, it wasn't fun until Joey was got his spine snapped in half. So I would say that was the official birth of Hulkamania. Now, the unofficial is 40 years old today.
So for a moment, I was the Bubba of the earth.
That's very true. So, but I saw stuff popping up on Facebook. I did not realize it was the 40th anniversary. I can't believe it's 40. And we'll talk a lot about wrestling, prior and during and well after. And to me, we could point the moments, Jeff, in sports history and kind of pinpoint where the game changed. Obviously, for football and us, I think we always say it's the Super Bowl, right? After the first Super Bowl, everything before that disappears, right? Like, Red Grange never ran. No other team won an NFL championship. No. Everything started with the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Nothing ever counts.
Right. So, and when we talk about wrestling, that to me is the day that wrestling changed and blew up. We'll hold that conversation for Will at 7:30. In the meantime, let's get my dad on, and we'll go through some stuff with him. And then once we're done with Dad, we'll get to Will and we'll talk a little wrestling. I got a little maiden / priest talk. I had a conversation, a little post by Frank Catalano today. I want to jump on that. We'll talk a lot of football, last week's games, this week's games, the coaching carousel, and Ozzy, the possible last shows of Ozzy. So let's get to my pops, Jeff, and then let's get back to the show. So hang in there, everybody, and let's bring on my pop. What's up, Dad?
Jeff, I'd pay $1,000 for that videotape.
Is he doing the camel clutch to Joey?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you $2,000 for that videotape.
Yeah, and I say to myself, did it really happen that way? And at this point, it doesn't matter because that's what I remember. So as far as I'm concerned, that's what happened.
He was like a Pringle.
I'll take it because usually I would have been the one in the camel clutch.
He was absolutely a pretzel. If there was ever such thing as a pretzel, Joe was it. He was bent. He was purple because he couldn't breathe. Jeff was a big dude. Like we weren't little kids. We were big guys, and Jeff was bigger than all of us. And boy, he laid into that. And I just remember, I can just now think about big Joey's spine must have been snapping in pieces. Just clink, 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 clink.
You remember Ricky Grimaldi?
Sure.
We were up at PS13. I don't know if you remember this. And Ricky was looking for somebody to wrestle. And I didn't know that he was a high school wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to talk about bigger than everybody else. He was Ricky. So I fucking stood up and I was like, I'll wrestle you. And he's like, all right. And he proceeded to throw me all over the schoolyard and then kicked my ass. But years later, we met him in a bar and we were talking to him and he brought that up. And he's like, out of everybody that day that was in the playground, you were the only one that said, I'll wrestle you. He go, I killed you, but I'll give you credit. You kept getting up. You wouldn't stay down. And I was like, I was too stupid to stay down. Kept getting thrown around, but I guess I thought I had a chance.
Yeah. So
sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, right?
Yeah, and Ricky used to be a big listener of the show when we were on the radio. He's kind of disappeared.
Yeah. I know what happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He lost his phone.
And
forgot his login information from a certain lady friend that he has that I bump into from time to time. And I was like, is he all right? And everything. They're like, no, he's fine. He lost his phone. He don't know how to log back in. I'm like, you got to be fucking. Why not show him?
Yeah.
You know?
And again, that was on the internet radio. I mean, now he can easily find us on Facebook. He used to be on Facebook. He's kind of disappeared from it.
When you lose your phone,
I guess.
What are you doing?
Well, Pop, what's going on with you, Pop? What's on your mind this week?
No, not much. Just interested in the games coming up this weekend, and I really be rooting for Detroit.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. I think Detroit's. I think one, it's never. They've never been to a Super Bowl. So it's been 30 years since I think they were in this spot. And they're a fun team. I mean, you look at their coach is a fun guy, Jeff. I mean, I think it's a great story.
I hope that I hope they make it. I really do. Probably San Francisco getting in would be the better game.
Maybe.
But I would love to see Detroit get in, and I have a feeling that if they get in, they're going to stand a good chance of winning.
Yeah.
Because you know what? It's all of these teams have been pretty hot as of late. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to cool down. So if everybody cools down at the right time and Detroit stays hot for another game or two, they can do it. I would love to see them do it.
Absolutely. I think it'd be a lot of fun, Pop. I mean, it's something different, you get a different team.
It should be interesting. I don't think anything's coming out of – I'm not impressed at all with the AFC. I'm not he gets his – the only way to beat him is the way the Giants used to beat Brady. If you put enough pressure on him, you can hurt him.
Yeah, and
if you let him sit in that corner, in that pocket, you're not going to beat him.
No, listen, I mean, Mahomes, I got to tell you, I've listened to all week people talk about he may be the greatest quarterback of all time. And, I'll give the guy his due. I mean, there's no doubt 6 years in, I think this is his fifth or sixth AFC championship game. I mean, Jesus, the guy just doesn't lose. But I would say I've not been impressed with them. I mean, Jesus, Jeff and I had Mahomes on our fantasy team. Did not work out. But they win games. He rises to the challenge.
We could say whatever we want about him, the three of us, but look where he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I would tell you, I think the Ravens are the best all-around team. I'm not a fan of Jackson, but he's playing real well. They run the ball well. They play good defense. I think they might be the best team. Doesn't mean they're going to win. So I'm going to get deeper into the games, but I think just from a fan perspective for the game, I would tell you that if the Lions got in, guys, I would be full 100% in on this game. Like I go buy a Barry Sanders jersey just to wear to watch this game.
Keep going. I've got to get some plays on.
You know what I mean, Pop? I mean, like this is a team. Like I think, like you get to the Super Bowl and it kind of gets territorial, right? It's a national game, but people get territorial. If your team's not in it, you're not really paying attention. You watch the game, but you don't care. I think if the Lions got in, I think 3/4 of the country would be rooting for the Lions.
I think more than that, to be honest.
Look at Jeff with his Ndamukong Suh jersey.
Yeah, I've had this for years, man.
Really?
Yeah.
So if they make it, that's what you'll be wearing. The former Nebraska Cornhusker Ndamukong Suh, one of the dirtiest players of all time.
I don't know if it'll still fit, but yeah, I'll have it on.
Yeah,
Is he still around?
No, well, he was trying to hook up, but I don't think he played this year.
No, he didn't. But he tried to go. Frank said he was trying to. Miami was trying to sign him, and then they signed somebody else.
Yeah, he was trying late in the season. Yeah, I think he's about done. But Jeff, I was saying was, this is one of those games that the NFL, the Super Bowl is a national game, right? Everybody watches. There's hundreds of millions of people watching the game. But you know what? Most people aren't even really rooting. They got a box, they got a bet, but most people could care less. I think if the Lions get in, I bet you 3/4 of the country will be actively rooting for the Lions. It's such a good story. If you're a football fan and your team's not in it, you got to be rooting for the Lions. Nobody hates the Lions.
No,
unless you're a Packer fan or a Bears fan, maybe.
And maybe you're representing their division, so who knows how they feel about it.
I mean, besides the Giants, I'm a Packer fan from Bart Starr. But I just think they're more hungry than anybody.
The Packers looked good this last week. I thought that they were going to do it. I thought they had a very good chance of doing it. I was actually disappointed they lost.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. I thought that would have set up to be a really fun championship game with the Packers and the Lions. National TV. I thought that would have been a lot of fun. But listen, I think that this week's games have a potential to be really good football games. I think the matchups for the Super Bowl, no matter which way you go, are interesting. Now, if you're a TV, let me ask you this, guys. You're a TV exec at CBS. The game's in Vegas. What's the matchup? If you're I'm talking TV strictly from getting people to watch. To me, it's got to be Lions Chiefs, right? You get everybody loves the Taylor Swift angle. Everybody loves the Mahomes is all over TV, and then you got the Lions rooting interest for people wanting to see a different team. Jeff, is that the game TV wants?
No, I think you could make a case for any combination, Tom. You would have a good team with the Ravens. You got Patrick Mahomes in it once again. You got the 49ers, which may be an unstoppable team. You got the Lions, which the biggest question to me about the Lions is, do they make it into the playoffs next year? Or are they a for-real team? Or are they just this year's Cinderella team, one and done? So, to me, I understand what you're saying. But if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Kansas City, San Francisco would probably be the biggest moneymaker, or San Francisco, Baltimore. But I think you can make an argument for any one of those teams to get into to make it interesting on some angle.
The only thing that I think is it's the rich man against the poor man. Kansas City being the rich guy.
Yeah, I agree.
Won before, and he's the big shot. He's on TV all the time. Now you're coming in with a little guy like an auto salesman, a mechanic, people rooting for a team that nobody knows anybody on the team. There's nothing special about the team.
A blue-collar team.
There you go. Perfect in the name. And that's what it is. And I think for purpose-wise, it's just going to be – it should be a good game if it's Kansas City and Detroit, which I hope. And the only thing I'll say before I leave, I got a funny feeling, I could be wrong, Cowboys and Belichick. He ain't signed anybody.
No, I got it. It's a real big surprise to me that he hasn't gotten a job. Now the question is, why? Did he want too much power? Did like Jeff's thought process is, he's a little older. Maybe teams didn't want to go for the short-term thing, but I'll counter that one. But I don't think the cycle's done. The question is, of all the jobs that are left, does he want one of those jobs? And then what happens? But yeah, Pop, you know what? That's an interesting one. I would think more than anything, he wouldn't want to work for Jerry Jones. I would be shocked if he wanted to work for Jerry Jones and if Jerry Jones was going to give up power of picking players.
You know what, Tommy? I understand what you're saying, but I think in a way, Belichick wouldn't mind working for Jerry Jones for the fifth. Let him go on TV. Let him answer all the questions. He doesn't like to do that, Belichick.
No,
he likes his. He's not the type of guy with the ego in front of him. I mean, I have to be the center of attention. That's the only reason why I say that. But I'm going to let you go. You're almost finished with it.
Before you go,
hold on, Pop. Hold on. Jeff wants to say something. Go ahead, Jeff.
Before you go, here's one angle that nobody's mentioned. It was mentioned earlier when before he got fired by the Patriots. What has he done? Since Brady left, he hasn't been in the playoffs. His team gets worse every year. And I'm not saying that it was Brady that got them to where they were, but look at these guys going off now. They got nothing else to do. You're getting the notifications, right?
Am I?
I don't know. I know.
Yeah. I see it now. Yeah.
What has he done since he's been separated from Brady? He can't get a quarterback for his team. He can't win. They haven't been in the playoffs. Why would you want?
That's like when he was with Cleveland. That's what you could be the greatest jockey in the world. If you ain't got the horse underneath you, you ain't going nowhere, and vice versa.
I know, but it's showing that maybe he doesn't know where the horse is. He can't find the horse.
You have to have a little bit of everything. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. Tommy, I'll see you over the weekend.
You got it, Pops.
Have a good day.
Yep, you got it, Pops. That's my daddy checks in every week, and we love having him on the show. And it definitely brings a different perspective. And yeah, I grew up as a Giant fan, but my dad always loved the Packers. Always loved Vince Lombardi.
The old time team. Your dad's an old timer when it comes to sports. He remembers a lot of what once was. Wow.
Yeah.
Talking about putting the pipe down.
Holy cow. Is Matt insane? Deion Sanders?
Never mind that. Look at this one. Sam Darnold is the best quarterback in the NFL next year, maybe. Next to who? Fucking Russell Wilson?
Hold on. Well, I got to answer that. Matt, what has he actually accomplished?
Didn't Colorado lose?
Yeah. Have you watched his in-game coaching? It's non-existent. Holy shit. Oh my God. You're following it closely. Holy cow. Matt, I think sometimes Matt goes to the extreme and then he got to come back. And we've argued over this point. I think I've been right every single time. He'll come up with this guy's great because he's got a 75-foot wingspan. I'm like, but he can't catch. I don't care how long his arms are. He can't catch.
Listen, I don't know what Matt does for a living. I think he spends a little bit too much time reading football stuff. Does he have a woman in his life?
Yes.
Mrs. Matt.
Yes, he does. Yeah, I love Matt. And he's one of the brightest football guys that you can ever know. I love him to death. But, oh, my God. Yeah, I mean, God. I mean,
and if anybody's going to know anything about Colorado, it's this guy.
I mean, the guy has done the guy came in and, I mean, forget about building a team. I get it. It's his first year. But his in-game coaching is non-existent. Hey, horrendous. Oh my God. Anyway, let's get. I can't. I love Matt, but I'm almost gonna have to silence that crowd because Matt he loves to go out in the deep end and then it just blows up. Deion will be out of coaching in a couple of years. That's how bad a coach he was. Anyway, so
you know what? Sadly, he's a name.
Oh yeah,
and he will eventually work his way into Let's see. Sanders draws people to him because they want to see what he said. They want to see if he keeps his foot through the year. You know?
Yeah, I mean, his biggest accomplishment is getting Warren Sapp into coaching. What? So what? He can sell shoes? Oh my God! Please, I love Matt to death. He's a very bright football guy, but when he goes out on a limb like this, Deion Sanders was almost a great player. He never tackled anybody, so I'm gonna call him a great player. But he was a great cover guy. He's a fun personality. He was good on TV doing analysis. He's not a great football coach. He's not.
Is Matt our age or older?
Matt's a couple of years younger than us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I hate when people are designated for things like that and they've proven nothing. First off, he had like the Deion Sanders Academy. He said he would never leave, left the kids, didn't pay people. It didn't work. He went to the Jackson State or Jackson, whatever, the historically black college. He went there. I'm going to build a championship. Couple years, left there, went to Colorado, threw everybody out, set up this whole program. They won 3 games. He was on TV. He was everywhere. Next thing you know, they lost like 8 straight games. But his team never adjusted, never went to halftime and fixed what was going on. Never got better. And that's the mark of a coach. You might not be the most talented, but you got to find a way to get the most out of your players. And he never did. I watched his games. So listen, Matt's great, and he knows his shit. But sometimes he gets into these tangents, and I go, Matt, we got to pull you back. The pipe, please, put the pipe down. So anyway, Jeff, let's get to some real stories. And the real story on this one is 40 years ago, on January 23rd, 1984, to me, marks a big anniversary. And beside you snapping Joey's back, the real birth of Hulkamania was born. Now, we didn't know it was Hulkamania at the time. I don't even think they acknowledged it as Hulkamania.
No, Hulkamania wasn't born yet.
Yeah, I don't think
that was a phrase that came later on.
He wasn't even coming out to the song at that point, but that marks the beginning. The flags were coming out. There was the champagne in the locker room, and it was the birth of wrestling, as far as I'm concerned. I watched wrestling from 1976 till that point. I watched the midnights on Saturdays. I think you and your brother did kind of the same. And while we were wrestling fans, you watched. It wasn't diehard until 1984. Then all of a sudden it changed. And for the next few years, it was different. So before we bring Will on, and I want to get him in for most of this conversation, Jeff, give me your quick thought on 1984 and wrestling on January 22nd and what wrestling became on January 23rd.
Well, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure that I remember this much, the Iron Sheik beat Bob Backlund for the title. Mm-hmm. The Iron Sheik was probably the most hated heel at the time, with any of the tensions from the Middle East and Iran and Iraq, being an Iranian wrestler, and then all of a sudden he wins the belt. And he took it from like an all-American boy in Bob Backlund. And now here comes Hulk Hogan. I don't even remember the hype of that matchup. And then they ended up having the match. It was either a Monday night or a Friday night they had the match, because I remember Saturday Morning Wrestling.
Yes. They
came in and they showed the match. And I remember taping it because it was on VHS tape, where if I went to my mother's house, I still believe that tape lives there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I still believe that tape is there, that video was on. It might have been recorded over, but the tape still lives.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah. And well, to be honest with you, I remember like not knowing much about Hulk Hogan at that point in time. And then here he comes. And it was like, as long as he could beat the Iron Sheik, and that's exactly what he did. Of course, the Hulkster had a lot of, there he is, right? On thing. The Hulkster had some problems taking on the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik had him. And, listen, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan persevered. And like you said, a brand new day.
Yeah. And according to Wikipedia, immediately after the title win, commentator Gorilla Monsoon proclaimed Hulkamania is here. So while it might not have been a movement at that point, Gorilla Monsoon, whether it was preordained or off the cuff, supposedly, and again, I'm going to go back and look and see if I can. I can't play it on the show because we're wind up getting thrown off the air. It happens, and I ain't going to lose the show for it. So I'll play. I want to relive it afterwards. But it's supposedly Gorilla Monsoon proclaimed directly after the win. Hulkamania is here, so we'll see. But let's get Will involved, and it was his idea, and let's talk a little Hulkamania and what maybe Will can give us his perspective. What's up, Willie boy?
Hey guys, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good, sir.
Just here in the
What's
hotel.
up, Will?
You're waiting on a ship. Yeah, just back at work. Kind of a bit boring, but I made the most of it. Yeah, I think honestly, guys. Okay, I saw Hogan wrestle when he was a heel. I saw him wrestle Dominic DeNucci at Wagner College in 1980. Hogan, actually, believe it or not, you know what really worked for him, guys, when he did Rocky III?
Sure.
Yes.
Of
Because
course.
he got fired from the WF for doing that.
That's correct.
Well, if you remember, Rocky III happened the summer before that.
1982.
Yes,
1982. Oh, I thought it was
He
83.
was he said back in 1981, he said Stallone had come up to him and said, I want you to be in Rocky. So he said to Hogan, hit me as hard as you can. Hogan said, you sure you want to do this? So sure enough, Hogan wound up doing. He said he wished he had an agent, though. He would have made more money out of the thing.
But
But
Hogan said to Stallone, "Hit me as hard as you can."
No.
Stallone told him.
Yeah. So
He said,
I read Hogan's book, a few of them
Yeah, me
actually,
too.
and he said that So Stallone's people had tried to reach out to him a couple times, and he was blowing it off. He thought it was a goof.
Yeah, people would do that.
Yeah, I don't watch the new wrestling, Frank. I got to be honest with you. I go to the Peacock channel and I get the old stuff. I can't watch the new stuff. I can't watch it. There's no wrestling. It's just a bunch of guys yelling and screaming. Once in a while, they throw each other off a cliff onto a table.
I like the attitude. That was it,
The guys today don't look like wrestlers.
No.
There's nothing.
Not
They
at all.
all have the same physique. They all look like they're about 5'8" to 6 foot, and about 180 pounds because they're all smallish guys. There's no big monster looking guy, no fat guys. There's not the prototypical wrestler.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't watch the new wrestling. I tried once in a blue moon. I'll catch that they're bringing back one of the legends. I'll kind of tune in for a minute, but not to watch it. So Stallone's people reach out. Finally, they get him. They talk on the phone, and to Jeff's memory, he's 100% right. Stallone, to Will's point, Stallone brings him in, and he wants him to punch me as hard as you can, hit me as hard as you can. They go through all that. He gets the spot, and Vince McMahon Sr. tells him, if you take it, you're fired. He takes it, does it, makes his money, and I think what happens is he goes to Japan first, and then he winds up in Minnesota for a while.
With AWA with Vern Gagne.
Yeah, and he winds up in Minnesota, and then Vince Jr. grabs a hold of him, brings him to New York, and this is the birth of him turning now to a baby face, and we start heading toward this moment. And and again, now Bob Backlund is the champ for 8 years. I guess
almost six years, almost 6 years.
Yeah, he's I can look it up, but he's probably close to probably in that range.
78 to 83, February 78 to December 26, 1983.
So Hogan's Backlund's a champ, and then the plan is to transition it from the Sheik from Backlund to the Sheik to Hogan, and the birth of a new era. Now, I don't think anybody could have had any thoughts that it was going to blow up the way it did.
No, definitely not.
But
Backlund helped come up with the finish. I read Backlund's book.
Okay.
But Backlund was the only wrestler who could do the Persian Club Challenge.
Yes.
No other wrestler, Tommy, could do it.
I agree.
The Ultimate Warrior can't do it. Hulk Hogan can't do it. Backlund has a set of clubs at the WE Universe. He had 2 of them, but he said, I'll give you these ones, but these ones here were a gift from the Sheik when I did it, so I'm keeping those. He said those ones mean a lot to me.
Those clubs, they weighed like 100 pounds a piece.
Yeah, he said Backlund could do it with no problem. All these other wrestlers, the Ultimate Warrior, all the steroid heads, couldn't even do it.
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
Oh my! Let me tell you, so Bob Backlund was a good technical wrestler.
Yes,
and a very strong, well-conditioned guy. I mean, he was bland, vanilla. It wasn't much to his character.
No.
But
there wasn't characters back then.
You're right. You're 100% right.
You had to wrestle. You had to be a wrestler.
if
Yes.
your name was Tommy Florio, Will Cloak, Jeff Talwinski, that's what you went in the ring under.
Yeah,
You didn't
absolutely.
have the Ultimate Warrior or some of these other names. You know, it just didn't work out that way. But that was wrestling.
Yeah.
And also, too, if you remember right, when we were kids, none of those guys were overly built. Some of them look like truck drivers, maybe moving
No,
men.
I would say I'd say there's a couple of guys that were at least Putski, Superstar Billy Graham
Yeah.
were probably the closest thing. Other than that, you're right, Jeff. Most of those guys had dad bods.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
most people, most of the wrestlers like Billy Graham, you take a guy like him, like he just was like a real bitter person.
Yes.
I mean, he, when he says, they should have turned me face and let me have a longer run with the belt. He was so screwed up when he came back years later with that stupid karate gimmick. Remember that, guys?
Yes. Yes.
And it didn't go over at all. And like Backlund said, when he came back, he said Superstar was in such bad shape. His hips were shot from all the sticking a damn needle over there. He says his hips were shot. We were concerned about him. He said, but most of the promoters didn't even care for them to even have a match together. He said Buddy Rose got more. I saw him wrestle Buddy Rose in the Garden in August of '82. He said Buddy Rose got most of the matches with me. He goes, Billy got his 3 in the Garden. He says, and then all the other promoters basically either had us one match and threw us in a cage. That was it. He says the other promoters didn't care for it.
Yeah.
And once Hogan came in, it changed everything. I say when it first happened, it was really, really cool. I think WrestleMania kind of watered it down a little bit. It kind of made it. I mean, I don't know. Wrestling.
The whole Hulkamania thing you're talking about?
Well, no, the Hulkamania thing was something, but once they brought Mr. T in and all of that, he
wanted to go. McMahon wanted to go. He listen, and I'm not saying I disagree with you, but do you think the plan was ingenious? You took something that most people didn't want to admit that they watched, and he made it so mainstream by bringing in Cyndi Lauper, by bringing in Mr. T, Mr. T was probably the biggest star in the world at that point. Right. He brought in The Rock in wrestling. He brought in Hollywood. You went to watch WrestleMania, and there's Muhammad Ali and Liberace and Billy Martin. Bob Uecker.
You got to think when he made WrestleMania 1.
Yep.
Okay, the whole match was centered around Hulk Hogan and
Mr. T.
Roddy Piper or something.
Yeah,
right?
well, it was him and Mr. T versus Orndorff and Piper.
Yeah,
Piper felt used out of that.
Everyone they made bigger and bigger and bigger.
Sure,
he had no choice. This was the biggest wrestling show of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
Led up to that, from the day after WrestleMania, they were already leading up to the next WrestleMania.
Sure,
it's the way it was.
Oh, absolutely.
And now all of these pay-per-views, out of all of the pay-per-views they have, the Royal Rumble is the one that sets up WrestleMania.
Sets up WrestleMania.
It starts off the new storylines. It's almost like the TV shows start in September, October.
Yeah,
the new wrestling year starts in April.
Yeah, and
now it's a weekend. Never mind what it is. However, you wrestle now, it's a whole weekend.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. It's a show. It's not the Super Bowl, but that's what they make it.
Well,
again, the wrestling Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think to me, I mean, listen to me. I know there were a lot of good WrestleManias after, but WrestleMania 3 to me was the apex. I mean, Hogan, Andre, 90,000 people. It was just countrywide. It was just everywhere. I'm not saying it wasn't good ones after. There was some really good WrestleManias after that.
But that was the WrestleMania that really broke open. And you had
100%.
1 and 2. They were at the Felt Forum in the Madison Square Garden.
Yeah,
you remember. And then
WrestleMania. It was years later. I saw 1 and 2.
Guys, they were using the Felt Forum back in the 70s.
Sure.
Yes, but that was the first, I should have said, pay-per-view that happened at the Felt Forum.
Yeah,
it was
what
a pay-per-view. And you were WrestleMania 1.
Yeah, on close TV.
Yeah, I remember that.
Was the one that really broke
100%.
everything.
That was the first one we got to watch live on pay-per-view.
I remember we had tickets for me and my brother Mike. We had tickets for WrestleMania 3. I forgot what high school we went to, and they couldn't get it going.
Oh, really?
Everybody's outside. We bought our tickets the day before from the guy in Carvel, $15 a ticket.
Oh yeah, remember that, buying wrestling tickets from the guy in Carvel.
Yeah, and then we went, and then what happened was, so we went back the next day, and the guy said, "Okay, I got an address from Titan Sports. You mail the tickets to him." We did, and they gave you money back in the calendar. But what I remember most about that was the poor guy. Everybody wanted to kill him.
Oh, sure.
He said everybody went down there that night demanding their money back.
Oh, sure, of course. I mean, we watched that. I'm pretty sure Jeff and I we all watched that together. I mean, I can't imagine
Yeah,
we did.
It was nuts, man. It was crazy.
WrestleMania 3?
Yeah, because
no, that's what you're saying. We watched that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we watched
they
that.
did it in. I
seeing
think
that
it had
someplace.
no problems. It went off with no problems in
Yeah.
Wagner College. But where I forgot which high school was it? Maybe it was Susan Wagner or Tottenville or something, and it was me, Stewie Levine. Stewie's passed away. His girlfriend Agnes at the time. Yeah, we were sitting there. We standing outside waiting. Cody. And we were just sitting there waiting.
I remember. I'm pretty sure I was at my house because I had it on videotape and I transferred it onto DVD. So I still have the original copy of WrestleMania 3 on video and on DVD in the box in my closet somewhere.
A week later, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw
the original broadcast.
Videotape of it.
Yeah. Now I've seen it a million times other places, but I have I'm sure it's got a little bit of deterioration from the years, but to me. But so guys, let's go back to Hulkamania and where that is. Let's not get too far into the WrestleMania thing. Will, is Hulk Hogan the Babe Ruth of wrestling? Now, Babe Ruth's considered the greatest player in wrestling.
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, wait, hold on. Babe Ruth is considered the best baseball player of all time. Is Hulk Hogan the greatest wrestler or just the most important wrestler?
Ooh, that's a tough one because
he wasn't a great wrestler.
No, he wasn't. But believe it or not, neither was San Martino.
No, there was a lot of those guys weren't great wrestlers.
San Martino, was very popular with all the Italians up in New York. I mean, that's a fact. And we all, Morales was a good wrestler. Let's see. Backlund was good. That's a good question. I would probably say yes. As far as greatest wrestler of all time, I wouldn't put him over Flair. In Flair's peak, I wouldn't put him over Flair. I definitely put him over Dusty.
But is he the most
important? I would say.
But is he the most important wrestler of all time?
I would say most. I would give him that, Tommy.
Okay, Jeff, would you put him as the Babe Ruth of wrestling, or kind of the Jackie Robinson, the guy who kind of broke things? Would you call him the greatest wrestler? Would you call him most important? Would you say he's both?
I wouldn't call him the greatest wrestler because I think there's been better wrestlers than him.
Sure.
Would I call him the most important wrestler? Definitely, because that's when the WWF started to acquire people from different territories.
Yes.
And they weren't a weekend outfit at this point in time. They were doing shows at the Garden. They were starting to do pay-per-view shows. They were starting to get bigger names in to the WWF. For the longest time, when we watched wrestling on Saturday nights and Saturday mornings, you would get like some guy that was a janitor in a high school wrestling one of the bigger names, and they'd come out and we'd win the match in no time. And I'm looking for you, Backlund. I want a shot at the title, but you would never see this guy wrestle Bob Backlund.
Yeah,
and now all of a sudden, you're starting to see bigger names wrestle one another.
Sure.
It wasn't just a scrub wrestler that was wrestling. Okay. And a lot of it happened because of Hulk Hogan. He lifted wrestling up as a whole. Absolutely. And he started to tie it together. Is he the greatest wrestler? Definitely not. Definitely not. We could probably make a lot of arguments for a lot of better wrestlers than him. Most important wrestler, I would go with,
Okay, Will.
Okay, I'll give you an example. You guys remember when we used to go see the smaller market shows?
Sure, of course.
Because in reality, guys, that was the company's bread and butter.
Yes.
Like Backlund said, you didn't do arenas every night. You couldn't do arenas every night because you had the whole East Coast. That's it. So you can get an arena once a month, right? Once or every other month. He said you have Providence Civic Center, Madison Square Garden, Nassau Coliseum. Meadowlands came later. Baltimore Civic Center. He said Philadelphia Spectrum. That was so you had to do the in-betweens. So you had to do the smaller places like Wagner College or any of the high schools or college gyms around, the East Coast area. And once Hogan came in, what I noticed was they didn't do it the way they were doing it before. Like, you remember the champions were at all of the shows. All three champions, the Intercontinental, the Tag Team Champion, the World Champion, was at every show. Every Madison Square Garden show, usually was every Monday night. Then when Hulkamania took over, then it got bigger, and McMahon said, you know what? I'm going to go in everybody's territory. So all the promoters got together, and McMahon turned around and he said, well, I'm going to Charlotte. I'm going to California. And they all looked at him like, Vince, you can't do that. And yeah, he did. And then that created a lot of hostility. The way he got Vern Gagne in the AWA was the wrestlers from the AWA were calling Hogan. And they were like, look, we're not happy here anymore. Bobby Heenan said that. He said, I was the only one who finished out his dates with the company. Gene Okerlund, all of these.
Oh, the money to be made was in New York. The money to be made was in the WWF and WrestleManias and all the big shows that they were doing. And here's why Hogan was the most important. It was merchandising. Nobody was buying, stuff from the AWA or the NWA or even the WWF before Hulk Hogan. All of a sudden, little kids are running around with Hulk Hogan T-shirts and belts and dolls.
Everything.
That's where
Vince McMahon was a genius.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? You
mentioned putting the iron on their shirts.
You mentioned Ric Flair.
Yeah.
And how important Ric Flair was, and he was. Okay. But he was important down the southern end.
Yes.
Okay. He was down south. We only used to see him in magazines.
Yeah.
Once in a while on some obscure TV station, if you were able to get it.
Yeah.
We didn't see much of them.
Nope.
No, because you got to remember.
Expanded. He was genius. Vince
well,
McMahon.
Ric Flair may be the greatest wrestler of all time, and I got to be honest, I never saw enough of Flair in his heyday. I've seen tapes of it, and I've seen better wrestlers. Ricky Steamboat, there's Macho Man. I think we're better wrestlers.
I saw Flair wrestle.
Right, but
1984 in the Meadowlands against Steamboat. NWA did a show in 1984, May of 1984.
I'm not going to knock Ric Flair. I'm not going to try to say whether he was a great wrestler or not. The problem is Ric Flair could never be Hulk Hogan in a sense. Hogan's personality alone lifted the WWF above everybody else and carried it for years. It wasn't a year, it wasn't 6 months.
True.
It was
10 years. It went on for 10 years.
Yeah, and to this day, it's still alive. I mean, you see him go to different things. I follow him on social media. The character, it's still the biggest name in wrestling. Now, listen, The Rock, Stone Cold, all those guys are huge. Don't get me wrong, and they may even be more popular today because they're still in the limelight, especially The Rock. But in that 10-year period, guys, nothing will ever exceed that. The Attitude Era, nothing will exceed those 10 years of Hulkamania and what they did because they built it from nothing, Jeff. You went from zero to nothing, and that's what it became. And there was no bigger movement in wrestling than that at that point.
There was a guy.
There is still, and will never be.
No.
There never will be. He came around at the right time.
Exactly.
He hooked up with the right place, the right person, which was Vince McMahon. He had a vision, and he pushed it. And the best thing about Vince McMahon is up until recently, when he still had The Rock and Triple H wrestling, it was unbelievable. What an unbelievable run.
Oh, yeah.
You'll never see somebody like that again.
No. You got to remember, you're never going to see that. You're never going to see that again because it's like a long time ago, right? You know who was actually, they were thinking at one time of putting the belt on at one time?
Mm-hmm.
They thinking one time of Snooker. But the problem with Snooker, which we all would find out later on, his personal problem, Snooker was unreliable and he was basically a drug addict and he murdered his girlfriend. The guy's a piece of garbage.
Before Hogan, Snooker may have been the most popular wrestler of that early era, 80s era. No, he was the first guy starting to climb the ropes, jump, the aerial stuff. He was the first guy, and everybody was a Snooker fan. Now, you're probably right. Well, his unreliability and him being probably a mental patient probably was the reason why he wasn't. He was never given that responsibility of the belt. But there was nobody bigger in 1980, 81, 82.
82 to 83, Snooker was the biggest star McMahon had.
Absolutely.
Once he turned face, I saw him when he was heel. I saw him wrestle Morales. Once he turned face, it was unreal. But like Backlund said, there was talk of that. Backlund said the Vince McMahon sir came up to him and said, Bob, what do you think of if I would have put the title on Snuka? And he said, no, Jimmy's timing and everything is phenomenal, and it was. But like Backlund said, the office had the problems with Snuka's addiction problems and not being reliable. The reason they gave him a manager was they wanted someone to basically walk him to a match.
Yeah, they need a babysitter.
Yeah, so that's not good. And
No.
And then the thing with his girlfriend, that happening.
Sure.
Like Johnny Rods told me, they said all of it just combined, and they just basically said, they didn't even know what was going to happen to him. That's why Tito Santana got the belt, because Santana was reliable. And you're going to be
a very underestimated wrestler.
Are you talking the Intercontinental belt?
First was a heavyweight, and then we all thought Snuka would go over Morocco. I went to the first 2 matches in the Garden, and
because Snuka never had a belt, period.
No, he didn't get any. He didn't get any. He claims he wasn't used right, but no, I don't believe that. I believe if he had his ducks in a row, they would have gave him something.
Yes, I agree. He was huge.
Other people wound up getting it. Other people
he was huge in that era.
Very,
he just yeah. I mean, I would tell you before Hogan, to me, he was the biggest wrestler there was.
I went to Wagner College.
Me too. We were at that.
We went to Wagner. Buddy Rose, right?
I don't know who he fought, Jeff. Do you remember?
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of matches that Snuka had. One of them was against Don Morocco. It was just some of the things that happened in those old matches were great. But I'm sorry. What was the question?
The question, do you remember when we went to Wagner's and we saw Snuka? Do you remember who he wrestled that night?
Buddy Rose.
Oh, man, no.
That was Buddy Rose, guys. I remember you guys being there.
Okay, it's possible. I won't argue. I have no recollection.
He made the.
You're talking, God, that may be 40 years ago.
More.
1983.
I had the 83.
Yeah, goddamn, it's too old. But if you remember, guys, you couldn't get another person in there with a shoehorn. And they announced from the ring to let the kids, kneel down the front near the rail. And it was pretty cool, though. I remember that night. I remember Rocky Johnson, Morocco squared off. Morocco didn't win the Intercontinental.
I remember Rocky Johnson. I remember watching him wrestle that night.
Yeah, he was a good wrestler. He was a good.
Great wrestler.
Morocco was there?
Yeah, Morocco. It was Morocco and Rocky Johnson, Snuka and Buddy Rose, and then the Strongbows, I remember, they wrestled the Samoans. And it's amazing how the matches were done in like an hour and a half.
I remember Morocco. For some reason, Morocco stands out in my mind a lot of early wrestling. He was kind of fat, but a solid fat guy.
Oh, he was hilarious, Morocco.
Yeah. And he reminded me more of a bouncer in a bar than a wrestler. Like he wasn't overly big, but he was thick.
Yeah, but he knew how to work a crowd. I remember when I saw him wrestle Pedro Morales in '81 in Tottenville High School, and when people holding beach bum signs, and he just knew how to entertain it. He just knew he was a really good selling. He was a good selling heel. He was probably the best Intercontinental heel champion that I remember from back in the day.
Remember the faces he used to make, like the faces disgust.
Oh yeah, everything. I mean, he was just classic. His matches with Snuka, they used to beat the hell out of each other. And he said, me and Jimmy had a lot of great matches. We had a good time and everything. And he said like Rocky Johnson. They asked Morocco, like, what'd you think of Rocky Johnson? He said he was all right, but sometimes he get lazy and I had to work him harder. But he said the
match with Snuka ripped off like all of Morocco's clothes during the match.
And that was the start. That was on a Saturday morning. I'll never forget.
Oh God, that was great stuff.
That was the start of a feud that went on for 7 to 8 months in that company. That went on for a long time. The steel cage. They were talking about the steel cage, right, guys?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They said that Morocco trusted Jimmy that much. They knew each other since, like, when they both broke into wrestling, because everybody said that. They said they were scared shit. They said either he's going to come down on Morocco, right? He says that Morocco's career is going to be fucked. Right? Oh, excuse my language. But he says,
okay.
He says either that, he said, and if you ever look at when he came off that cage, Morocco, like Suka said, he came up perfectly. He came right up, boom, and I went down on him. And he said Morocco suffered like the biggest Charlie horse. But
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
it sold so well.
Oh, absolutely.
sold.
That was real wrestling. I get when I say real wrestling that it was scripted, but
Yeah.
there was a storyline. You had some, you had a little, you had to be able to talk on the mic, but you had to wrestle. And if you
Yeah.
didn't know how to wrestle, nobody paid attention to your matches, and that's
No,
why
they
I don't
didn't.
watch it
They
today.
didn't.
But I can't believe it's 40 years. Hulkamania running wild, as they say. I hope
Yeah.
everybody goes. Listen, if you have the Peacock channel, I have it. I go back every once in a while and I'll watch old shows.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's a lot of fun. You can kind of go back and watch stuff, and some of it you watched back in the day, but meanwhile your friend was putting another friend in the camel clutch, so you missed things. So you
I wish I was there to referee that one. I would have said, Joey didn't give up yet. Jeff, pull harder.
But so real quick, let's do this. Give me your top 5 wrestlers of all time. Doesn't have to be great wrestlers, or they have to be huge support. Give me your top 5 favorite wrestlers.
Okay, like we said, it's not in order. Hogan will definitely be one of them. Definitely Stone Cold Steve Austin. I loved him. I loved his gimmick. I like Don Morocco's
Before you go any
gimmick.
further, Stone Cold Steve Austin, I met him on Staten Island. One of those signing things.
Yeah.
He was the biggest asshole you'd ever want to meet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I met him. He was the nicest guy in the world.
Oh,
Okay.
he wouldn't. I said something to him. He didn't even acknowledge me. He just signed. He was just like, yeah, whatever, and just kept signing fucking pictures.
Oh, really? That much? Yeah. Another Scott Steiner. My friend goes to that WrestleCade. Take his picture without getting him a 20. He wants to fight you. And,
Really?
I would say, okay, Tommy. Let's see.
Yeah, give me
I'd
your 5.
definitely say Hogan. I'd say
Right.
Backlund.
Mhm.
I'd say Morocco. I really liked. I love Snooker in those years. And I'd say Ric Flair.
All
What about
right,
you,
interesting. Jeff, how about you? Give me your top 5 wrestlers of all time.
I got to go Snooker, The Rock, the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, Jeff was always a big Ultimate Warrior fan.
All he could do was run around.
As I get older, I got to go with Morocco, man. He was just great. He was just great.
He was a great
And,
heel, man. He was awesome.
Listen, as much as I hate to say it, I guess I have to say Hulk Hogan to round it out, just because he's the one that tied all these eras together.
Yep,
he did.
And he set it off. He was the catalyst to what we have, what it came up to today. Without Hulk Hogan in that role back in 1984, we don't have wrestling as we know it today.
No, you're right. I agree with that. Even though there's a debate, because they asked San Martino that question, and San Martino's like, no, he was the biggest steroid, blah, blah. But, Bruno was old school. I mean,
they all were, though.
He was from a completely different era.
Yeah.
Hell, now Hogan's era is completely a different era.
Absolutely.
Now, it's so, things change. And,
Absolutely. And sometimes they change for the better. And to me, it changed for the better. The Hogan era, I think even the Attitude era got better to a certain degree, but it was just starting to get to that point where it was more important about being on the mic than in the wrestling ring.
That's
true. It was still okay. After that, it just completely went off the rails.
Oh, I stopped. I haven't watched it in 20 years.
Yeah, again, I haven't watched the match in a long time. Again, I'm turning it on.
What you saw 20 years ago, it does not even compare to what they're doing today.
Yeah, I could imagine. You're going to be paying for it.
You would be shocked by what they're doing today.
Yeah, I would, because it's not me. For me, guys, it's Hogan, it's Backlund, because that was the first guy I ever watched wrestle.
Me too, Backlund and Malvi and Wagner College.
A guy who I hated as a kid, and I realize now how much he was probably the greatest on the mic wrestler of all time, and a good wrestler to boot. The Rod Man, Roddy Piper is one of my favorites of all time. Snooker's got to be in there for sure. And then I'm going to pick 2 guys on my last one. It's going to be the British Bulldogs, are my favorite wrestlers of all time.
Okay.
Bar none, my favorite wrestlers to watch. They just were high flyers. So, hey, listen, it's 40 years. Hopefully 40 years from now, we'll be still here talking about wrestling, but who knows?
You'll still hear people. Hogan's name will always be around.
And that's the difference.
Forever.
It's just like Babe Ruth. Hulk Hogan's name will always be synonymous with wrestling because he's the first guy who made it to what it is. So, hey, Will, listen, we really appreciate you giving us a half hour.
One quick thing I want to say.
Sure. Go ahead.
I hope they're saying Ozzy's going to do these shows. I hope he does.
Thank you for the lead-in, because that's going to be my next topic.
Okay, well, you guys enjoy that topic. I'll be watching.
Hey, Will, listen, Joyce, stay safe out there. Thank you for what you do. and we'll keep up in touch. Hopefully, we'll get you back on soon. See you,
All right,
pal.
guys. Great seeing you guys. Take care.
All
Be
right,
good, Will.
Somebody
Stay
will.
safe.
Jeff,
Sorry,
that's a good.
I couldn't hear Will's question or what he asked for.
Well, he was talking about. So there was an announcement that they're looking to have Ozzy's looking to do 2 shows and retire.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
And I saw that. I guess it's going to be. He wants to do in Birmingham. And while I understand that it's where he started, I get the whole thing. One, if I was Ozzy, I would try to gather up as many of my old guitar plays as I can, and play different shows wherever you can, even if it's 4 or 5 or 3 or 2. Whatever it is, I think to make the last 2 ever in Birmingham is great. If you do some others before that, if he's not doing anything else, Jeff, and it's only 2 shows, and they're going to both be there, I kind of got a problem with it.
Well, you know what I'd like to see Ozzy do, and I don't know. Of course, the condition of Ozzy does not look very promising.
No, it does not.
It would be nice to see Ozzy do 1 show a month for a couple months. Come do
New
York, Boston, Chicago.
Exactly.
Do a trip around the country, okay? Maybe a couple in California, and then maybe do a couple in wherever your big spots were in Europe, and you could finish up. But you know something, it's gotta happen. It's gotta happen. If you're gonna do it, it's gotta happen. Get the original lineup back together, man. Come on.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Yes, I agree with you.
Back together, even if it's the last show, Sabbath, one last time with Bill Ward. It's got to happen. If it doesn't happen, this is a travesty. If it doesn't happen, think of the Beatles in the position that they were in.
Yeah, you got a chance for one more. You got a chance for one last show. Yeah, I would agree with you. You kind of got to do it.
It's just, I have the concert, the end. Okay, the very final concert I have on my iPad someplace. I watch it from time to time, but I have the live album. Okay. And Frank, who gives a shit about his solo stuff, bro? Who wants to watch that? His solo stuff is half.
Well, I gotta be honest with you. I'm not totally against what Frankie's saying, because I would love to see him with Jake and Zach and some of those other guys playing some of that. So
he's saying two last shows.
What if he did this? What if he did the last 2 shows? And the first half of
dude, you're going to fucking Birmingham?
No, but what if the last 2 shows, right? The first half of the concert is Ozzy solo, and the last half is him and the Sabbath guys.
He'll never make it.
Just say you're going to play the same exact many songs. Let's say you're going to play 20 songs, and the first 10 is his solo with different band, and then the last half is Sabbath guys, and they do 10 songs each. To me, you're getting the best of both worlds, and you're seeing Ozzy in both his elements. I think that's actually a good idea.
But here's the thing. Does Ozzy have 20 songs a night in him?
Well, that's a big question.
And
that's a great question.
The Sabbath guys want to get together for 10 songs.
Well, that's, again, if you're playing 2 shows in the same town, like I wouldn't say they would never go on a tour that way, but if you're going to show up, let's say 6 months from now, and Birmingham, you're going to play 2 shows, and you're going to play both shows. You're playing the second half, and because they got to close the show. It will only be that way. But I think you're giving the fans the best of both worlds. You're giving them the Ozzy era solo stuff, and I would drag out. I'm telling you, Jake and Zach and anybody else that he can get his hands on to play a song or 2. It's 2 shows. It's not a tour. It's just 2 shows, and those last 2 shows,
that's a lot. That's a lot. And to do 10 songs, that's a lot.
But think about it, Jeff. It's the end of an era. If this is actually going to be the end of Ozzy. Now, I get the end of Sabbath was big in itself. But to be honest with you, let's think about this.
The end of Sabbath never happened. The Sabbath with Tommy Soufletis.
No, I got you. I understand your point. Yes.
Talking about you want to make your last shows in Birmingham.
Bill Ward's got to be part of it, 100%. But think about it. Ozzy solo is probably bigger commercially and nationally than Ozzy Sabbath years.
Listen, after shot, and no, Frank, he didn't. But you know what? After the first 2 albums with Randy Rhoads, then he did Bark at the Moon and Shot in the Dark with Jakey Lee.
Yep.
Okay, and then he started the Zach Wild era.
Was it Ultimate Sin after that?
Ultimate Sin, yeah. That Shot in the Dark was on the album.
Yeah, Ultimate Sin. Right. Got it.
after a while, his albums would.
Oh, I agree. No, again, I agree with you. I just think you got to do those first 4 albums, or even the first 3. You got to play the iconic songs. I mean, so to me, again, it's probably never going to happen that way. I'm just saying, if you wanted to do it right, first 6, 10 songs is Ozzy solo, and then you bring out the Sabbath guys. They only have to do 10 songs. They're 100 years old. They play the 10 top songs, and the last 2 shows, Ozzy goes out playing both, because you really don't want to hear Tony Iommi playing, Crazy Train, right? So nobody wants to hear that.
I don't want to see Tony Iommi play any of that Ozzy stuff,
right? So, but I don't think you're gonna. I don't know if you get those 4 guys together to play.
But I can tell you this much too.
Yeah.
Okay, and remember this, because of. I think he still has good songs.
Frankie, there's okay stuff. Listen, put it this way, Frankie. You're reaching for the Ozzy stuff. What's the first thing you're grabbing? The early stuff. You're not going for. You'll listen to it if it's on the radio. You'll listen to it if it pops up someplace. But you're not reaching for new Ozzy. I like some of the last stuff. It's okay. There's some stuff from the middle years that are okay, but I'm not reaching for it.
If you listen to Ozzy's stuff when he first came out.
Yep.
When he was with Randy Rhoads, okay? Sure. That stuff was tuned to 440. He's going to tune so low at this point in time that you're not even going to want to listen to it. If you don't believe me, look up Bark at the Moon Eclipse. Did you ever see when he did Bark at the Moon during the eclipse?
No.
Okay, had Zakk Wylde. Remember when they had the solar eclipse, and they timed it that the song started just as the eclipse was happening.
Okay.
He played the song, and by the time the song was over, the eclipse was over.
Okay.
Look it up on YouTube. It started daylight, went to nighttime, and then went back to daylight. It was a cool concept, without a doubt.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. But he was tuned so low, like beyond D, like maybe 1.5, 2.5 steps down.
Wow.
That it sounded like sludge as he was playing it. You're not going to want to listen to Ozzy sing all that older stuff, because he's going to be tuned so different. It's going to sound different. It's going to be like playing like Into the Void from Sabbath, that low, if not lower. It's going to be kind of rough. It's not.
So there's a blabbermouth thing. Hold on. So it says Ozzy Osbourne's Villa Park gig will take place. Why is this getting in my way here? I don't want to see this. It's not what I want to see. I don't want to accept all. I don't want to. It's blocking me from seeing it. I don't know why. Let's try it this way. Anyway, Jeff, I got your point. I do. I honestly do. But let's put it this way. You're thinking when Ozzy goes out the last 2 shows are only going to be Sabbath stuff, or do you think he's going to try to play some?
No, I don't think he's going to play any Sabbath stuff.
Right, that's my point.
I would love to see him do his last 2 shows.
Oh, I agree.
Doing them in Birmingham to do them with Sabbath and play and give everybody what they would want to see, which is original Sabbath back together one more time before they call it a day.
Oh, Jeff, I couldn't agree with you more. The last Ozzy song he should ever play is a Black Sabbath song. I'm not disagreeing. I think he's going to go out and he's going to play his solo stuff. I don't know what he's going to play. Right. So to me, I think to get the best of both worlds, they should try to do it. Now, again, there is something that Sharon announced about the last gigs, and for whatever reason, I'm getting blocked by the site from seeing it. But anyway, if it's in Birmingham, Frankie, I got it, and I think you both on the right track. It should be, but I don't think. See, the problem is Sharon's never going to let him be on stage his last time with those other guys. She's going to want this to be totally about him. And I disagree. To me, it should be with the 4 guys he started with and in the town he started with. To me, that's the way. But I'm guaranteed you she will never let those guys share the stage with him for his last few songs. It'll never happen.
Tommy, I got to get a drink real quick. I'll be right back.
So again, guys, on Hard Rock and Sports, Jeff and Tom here on a Thursday night. Hopefully you guys are sticking around with us. We got a lot to get to. I wanted my man Frankie Catalano gave me a couple of good ideas. One good idea today with this Maiden and Judas Priest. We're going to get to that right after the Ozzy stuff. And again, Geezer and Ozzy aren't talking. Yeah, Will, I don't think you're going to get those 4 guys on stage. It would take $1 billion. I mean, somebody would have to give Sharon $1 billion to let Ozzy share the stage with those guys. She hates them so much, and I don't get it. I would love to see 2 shows. First half of the show is Ozzy solo. You drag out Jake. You drag out Zach. You drag out Brad Gillis. You drag out a bunch of those guys, and they play 10 songs. And then the last 10 songs of the night, if you can do 20 songs, of course, is the Sabbath guys. They do 10 songs, and they do 2 shows that way. And but it won't. It's going to be Ozzy solo, probably with John 5 on guitar. I don't even know who's playing bass for him anymore, and that's how it'll end. And he's going to go out that way. And listen, I know Jeff's a big Sabbath fan, but Ozzy has gotten bigger than Sabbath. Doing the reality show. His wife being on TV, Ozzy himself is bigger than Sabbath. Us metalheads, yes, we love Sabbath. We love Ozzy and Sabbath. We love the whole bit. But Ozzy has his career. When people think of Ozzy Osbourne, they will not think Ozzy Osbourne in Sabbath. They will think of Ozzy Osbourne, the performer, the solo guy, because he's probably spent more of his career as Ozzy Osbourne than he did in Sabbath, Jeff. So unfortunately, Sharon and the rest of them are never going to, unless there's $1 billion on the table, they're never going to let them, she's never going to let them on the stage together, and Ozzy will go out with 2 solo shows.
I don't think it's her.
I think it's her.
To be honest with you. And like Will said, I know that Geezer and Ozzy aren't talking, but you put enough money together, you'll get anybody to talk.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And they'll be damn good friends.
Will you watch it? Will you watch if it's pay-per-view 1999, 2 Ozzy shows at the end? Will you watch either one of them?
No, I wouldn't. You know what? I've never seen Ozzy live by himself.
I have seen Ozzy.
I've never had the urge really to see Ozzy live by himself. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't spend the money now at this point in time, because I could just look back on the Sabbath video that I have and watch him play there.
I saw Sabbath with you. We went to Jones Beach and saw, which I thought was a great show. I also saw him do a set at the what was it? K-Rock Dysfunctional Family Picnic in 1999. It was a good Zach and was it the kid from the bass player from Metallica trio, right? Yeah. And somebody about who played drums, but it was a great show. He did a great job. I didn't think he sang incredible, but he did a good job. And
Frank, no, I'm not anti-Ozzy because he was out of Sabbath. I just don't think Ozzy's stuff is all of that great. The first 2 albums were incredible. After that,
I think the first 3 albums were incredible. You don't think Bark in the Moon was a great album?
Other than a couple songs, no.
Oof, I think that is.
No.
I think that is a great. If you were going to transition to a great album,
first of all, what was the other one? Shot in the Dark. What's the name of that album?
Speaking of the Devil?
No, not that's a live album.
That's a live album.
It was the second album with Jake. Jakey Lee.
I don't know. Top of my head.
Where they do Shot in the Dark. You said the name of
Ultimate Sin.
It's like a hair band Ozzy.
Yeah, again, I don't think. I think after the 3rd album, it's okay. There's some good stuff along the way, not great. But those first 3 albums are as good as any metal albums ever made.
Ask any Frank Catalano. Ask any Ozzy fan to come up with a set list that they want to hear, and just say pick whatever you want to hear Ozzy play, and I guarantee you would probably get a front end loaded first 2 albums, 3 albums max.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're not going to get all of that older stuff. You're not going to get songs like Perry Mason and Mr. Tinker Train. And
yeah, I like Mr. Tinker Train. I think that's a great. I love that song. I love the melody. Oh my God, that song I love the guitar sound. But the first album to me is the most important metal album of all time. I've said this 100 times on the show. Craig, that Blizzard of Oz is just the most important. Everybody went from sham shirts to cut off denim dungaree jackets that were painted from that album on. So that is the most important metal album. I'm not saying it's the best album of all time. It's just the most important one. But those first three albums are iconic. And I could go if somebody told me Ozzy's going to play every song off those albums to finish, I would be front row center because that stuff was the absolute bomb. It still resonates today. Don't get me wrong, I like the Sabbath stuff. Don't get me wrong, but to me, people will remember Ozzy for those first couple albums, without a doubt.
I'm looking up Bark at the Moon song list now, right?
Sure, go ahead.
And let me see, where is it? Ozzy Osbourne, Bark at the Moon.
I would tell you there's at least 5 or 6
Bark
really good songs.
All right, I'll tell you what. You got Bark at the Moon.
Go ahead, great song.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, and I'll tell you, I'm going to go one even further. It evidently this is the number of downloads that these songs have.
Okay.
So Bark at the Moon, it says here 33.7. It won't tell me what it is. But 33,000, I guess, downloads or visits to these songs.
Okay.
You're No Different. Song number 2, 7.4. Now you see it, now you don't. Okay. Third song on that album, no visits. Rock and Roll Rebel, 5.3 thousand.
Good tune.
Number 4, Center of Eternity.
Another
no
good
visits. So Tired, 5.4. The following 1, 2, 3, 4 don't even have a single visit. Slow Down, Waiting for Darkness, Spiders, and One Up on the B-side. So you have, out of 10 songs on this album, whatever this site is, there are only 4 songs that people were paying
We're visiting
on this website, which don't mean anything.
No.
I mean, Center of Eternity, I've heard the song.
Rock and Roll Rebel is a good tune.
Yeah, but there's
Waiting for Darkness. I mean, listen, I get it. They're not for everybody. I'm just telling you, for me, that album is a 8 out of 10. You have the other 2 albums are 10 out of 10s. That's an 8. And there's a couple of songs that are clunkers, but that's a really solid album. After that, I kind of fall off the page with it, and I go song by song. So,
I mean, to me, the best song that he did with Zakk Wylde was Miracle Man.
Great tune.
Everything else, I if I never heard it again, that'd be great. I just they've done nothing for me.
Yeah, there are like Mr. Take a Train.
Cool song.
Yeah, there's a handful of Ozzy songs that I would say I really like after the first 3 albums, but the first 3 albums are great metal albums, and again, the first one is the most classic metal album there has ever been made. It's just that was the one. Everybody was, all those other bands were out already, Maiden and Priest and everybody, and I was a big fan, Rush. But when everybody heard that album, for whatever reason, with the bat and all the other shit that goes with it, nothing was bigger than that album, and everybody changed over from that point. But listen, let's hope that Ozzy does some shows. We all want our icons to continue. I wouldn't probably go see him in concert, but I would tell you that I watched the Kiss one. I watched the Kiss show. If they were in Birmingham and I could pay $19 or $29.99 to see Ozzy's last show, I would think about it. It would depend, but I would think about it. But I saw Ozzy live solo. I saw Ozzy with Sabbath. I'm pretty content. I got to get to see Priest though.
I'm looking at another one. Once again, this means nothing.
Go ahead.
It means absolutely nothing. It's another website that I clicked on the first one. Blizzard of Oz versus Heaven and Hell. 53.9% of the people took Heaven and Hell over Blizzard of Oz.
Okay.
Now, once again, that means nothing because it's a bullshit website. I don't even know Steve Hoffman Music Forums. I don't even know who that is, but there's a couple others. Here's another one. Classic Rock Forum. Votes, Heaven and Hell, 56.8% over Blizzard of Oz of 43.2%. Once again, means nothing. That means absolutely nothing. I just wanted to see who sold more albums, which album sold more. Oh, wait a minute. According to search results, Blizzard of Oz sold over 13.4 million albums. Heaven and Hell has been certified platinum for 1 million sales in the United States and silver by the British phonographic industry in the UK. So Blizzard of Oz sold more copies than Heaven and Hell.
Yeah, and I don't think that's an indication. I mean, it's a different time. But again, Jeff, I think if anything it points to, I think it just shows that the early Sabbath stuff, while great, and again, it was kind of the Bob Backlund of music. You know, it was a great champion for years, but Blizzard of Oz became the Hulk Hogan, the Hulkamania of metal because it just blew it up at that point. Ozzy Osbourne put a face on metal and gave it a personality that it never had before, and that just was big. I don't think Ozzy stuff there is any better than the Sabbath stuff. I mean, the Sabbath stuff's iconic. It was just bigger, and again, I think it deserves to be played. If you're Ozzy, it's part of who he is. It's just part of who he is. I think if you're going to do a show, I would love to see him close with the Sabbath guys. I just don't think it'll ever happen. I think that's a shame.
Did I like Sabbath stuff with Ozzy at the end? Most of it, yes. Some of it was tuned so differently and so low to accommodate his voice that it didn't sound right.
Well, what was the last album? 13? Was that the last?
13, yeah.
That was a good album.
Well, it was all right.
It was good. It wasn't great. It was a good album. I thought they did a nice job with that. What was the one before that?
Songs that I would say the end of beginning of the end or end of the beginning, Is God Dead, Methodemic. There was about 3 or 4 good songs on that album. The rest of it, not so good.
Yeah, again, I think it's just different. But we'll see. Like I said,
did you ever see Sabbath live?
Guarantee, Frank.
With whether it was did I like Sabbath stuff with Ozzy before he went solo? Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah, I was not a Sabbath fan before I heard Blizzard of Oz. I would say I didn't like them. I just wasn't a big fan of Sabbath before I heard Blizzard of Oz. It's one of those things. I heard Blizzard of Oz and I went back and found out what Ozzy was doing much more before that. So I would say for me,
for a lot of people, they didn't even know who Ozzy was until that came out. They didn't even know he was in Sabbath.
Yeah, the Sabbath was all 3 singers. I can't really
because they had more than 3 singers, bro.
Yeah, it was Tony. Was it Tony Martin?
Ozzy Osbourne, Ronnie James Dio, Tony Martin, Ian Gillan.
Yeah.
Even Ray Gillan was in there.
What's wrong with Sabbath?
Yeah, dude, I liked all of the Sabbath stuff. All of the Sabbath stuff. The only Sabbath stuff I don't like was all of the stuff when, like from the mid 80s, when Iommi was the only one left, and he was putting stuff out that just didn't sound like Sabbath.
Yeah.
The stuff with Ronnie James Dio was a completely different kind of band.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was completely different sound. I mean, you still hear Iommi's guitar, so it can never be. It's like hearing Geezer's bass, even on his solo stuff. It still sounds like a Sabbath.
You saw Ian Gillan live? I don't like that album. That album is terribly produced. It sounds horrible. It sounds all fuzzy and everything. I think they rushed it, and that was one of those things. Ian Gillan and Tony Iommi were hanging out, and they got blasted together, and they decided to do an album. And Ian Gillan, read someplace, was like, he wasn't too sure of it. That's why it only lasted the one album. And I don't know if you like any of that stuff. If you ever heard any of that stuff with Ian Gillan, it's
well. Let's move on because we're running out of showtime. I want to get to some football. I do want to take one. I do want to address something Frankie said to me. Put in a post today. And let's hope that Ozzy does do some more shows. I think Jeff's right. He should bounce across the country if he's capable and play shows around the country, not just in Birmingham. But if he can only do 2 more shows, I get it. And to Jeff's point, I do hope the Sabbath guys are up there for a couple songs, but it needs to be the entire band and do it the right way. But I don't think that'll ever happen. One of the Frankie brought up today, and I thought it was a really it was actually right on the money. So Frankie put up a post today and said, Judas Priest should continue to put out new music, but Maiden should stop. And as a huge Iron Maiden fan, my first instinct was to be like, what? And then I went, he's right. Maiden has stopped sounding like Maiden for a long time. I mean, I like some of the stuff. Again, it kind of goes back to what Jeff's saying. You pick out a couple songs here and there that were decent. Book of Souls, at Speed of Light, and there's been a handful of songs that you can kind of go back and listen to, but Maiden should stop. Ever to me, after what was the one in '99?
Not Book of Souls.
No, 1999. They came back with but they brought back the original band with Dickinson and Adrian Smith, and I saw that tour. I could see the album, huh?
Wicker Man.
Yeah, that album. What's that album?
I don't know. All
right. Well, anyway, ever since
they lost me by that time.
Yeah, that was a great album. It's very underrated. That's a really good album. After that, it drops. And I agree with Frankie. Maiden should stop making music and do their solo stuff. What's his name? Steve Harris could have his band, and Bruce is going out with his solo band, and then get together with Maiden, and every 2 years go out and do a classic concert and be done with it. No, it's not Dance in the Dark, Frankie. That's not the album. The last Maiden album, the one before that, that's Dances in Death, I think. The one before that, I got to look up Maiden.
Let's see.
Hold on. I saw the concert. I went. Me and Gary Barbario went. Maiden. Discography.
All night studio albums.
Hold on. Oh, Brave New World. That's it. Brave New World. Yeah, answer that. It was Dance of Death, Matter of Life and Death, which had a couple decent songs. Final Frontier had 1 or 2 good songs. Book of Souls. And then I still haven't listened to Senjutsu, and I refuse to listen to it.
Dude, guess how much the Iron Maiden 2-song vinyl LP is for midnight, of 2 minutes to midnight?
I have no idea.
$238.
Really?
Iron Maiden Live After Death, 1985, first press, the live album, $299.
I think I have all of those albums. I don't know if it's first press. I couldn't tell you. But I have all my original Iron Maiden albums, all my original Kiss albums.
Iron Maiden Peace of Mind, vinyl record, okay, $76.49. Wow.
Yeah, I have them all. And again, I
know you do. I know you got a lot of shit.
Yep. I got all those old albums. Most of Maiden and Kiss. I have all my original albums that I bought when I was a kid with my money, or as my brother likes to say, with his money, because he thinks I stole his albums. I didn't. I have my own. Anyway, so yeah, I have. Listen, it's probably the one thing I can leave my kids when I die is my albums. I can sell them and do whatever they want to do with them. So
they're going to take them and sell them.
Yeah, exactly right. Listen,
so leave them to me. I don't even think they're your kids.
All right, I'm officially saying that if anything happens to me, Jeff, come straight to the house, take every album out, and do what you want with them. Buy rims for the truck if I want.
I'm going to sell them.
But to Frankie's point, I think Maiden should stop, and I think Priest should keep making, because Priest is at least attempting to play and record Priest music. And by saying that is they play stuff that at least sounds like it came out of the 80s. It might be not the best quality stuff. It might not all be great. But I agree with Frankie. There are bands who should stop making music and just play their old stuff, and Maiden just happens to fall into that.
I said that how many times? I said
that. I agree. I
feel the same for Judas Priest. Enough. The reason I say enough is because the only original members, or close to original members, that you have left is the singer and Ian Hill. And most Priest fans don't even know who Ian Hill is. because
Sure.
he just used to stand there and play.
Yep.
And then the next member, who's been in there for over 30 years, is Scott Travis.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, listen, if they're still getting crowds and they're still playing and they're still selling out and they want to make music, then by all means do what you got to do. You're not the one that woke up for 37 years to work in the park department. I am. You know what I mean? So they know what they're doing. But just as a fan, I just have no urge to hear new music from either one of those bands.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. All I'm saying, to Frankie's point, is I Maiden should stop because they don't sound like anything like Iron Maiden. When I have to, at some point, Iron Maiden will put out an album. It'll be 97 minutes. It'll be one song. It'll just be one long song that'll just keep going on and on and on. And I love Maiden. I still think they're great in concert. I will go see their next tour that plays primarily old set. I'll do it. Priest, though, I get what Frankie's saying. I bought the last 3 Priest albums. I have them. So they're not bad.
You say that you would go see Maiden live.
Sure, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But their last tour, their last set list was all based around Somewhere in Time album.
Not really. They played a lot of new stuff. I didn't like the set list. That's why I didn't go.
They played a lot of, I'm going to look it up now.
Yeah, look it up, because it wasn't a lot of classic Maiden stuff. It was a lot of stuff they've never played live before. Check the set list. I did not like the set list. I know it was based on that, but it really wasn't a classic Maiden. The last one I went to was a classic Maiden when they played all classic era stuff. I thought it was great. In fact, I think I think I went with you, me, your brother, and Paul at the end. It was all classic Maiden, but the last tour was not. I remember looking at the set list going, I don't like half these songs.
Okay, here we go. This is just a Caught Somewhere in Time, Stranger in a Strange Land. First time live since 1987, Caught Somewhere in Time. Stranger in a Strange Land, first time since 1999. This is, let me see. Let me get to another one. Set list, Blade Runner, Caught Somewhere in Time, Stranger in a Strange Land, The Writing on the Wall, Days of Future Past, The Time Machine, The Prisoner, Death of the Celts, Can I Play with Madness, Heaven Can Wait, Alexander the Great, Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden, then Hell on Earth, The Trooper, and Wasted Years.
Again, it's not bad, but there's a lot of songs in there that I would not consider as classic Maiden stuff that I want to go hear them play. Yes, I want to hear them play Number of the Beast. Yes, I want to hear them play Hallowed Be Thy Name. Yes, I want to hear those songs.
15 songs, 5 of them came off of Stranger in a Strange Land.
That's the point. So to me, it wasn't a classic Maiden set.
No.
So you know what I mean? So that's why I passed on it. I'm sure it was a great concert. They still sound great. I hear I listen to that stuff, through YouTube and through Blabbermouth and when they played parts of their concerts. But it wasn't a classic set list. That they didn't play Iron Maiden. They did not play the song Iron Maiden. How do you have an Iron Maiden?
Yeah, it was number 12 on their
list.
Was
it? Okay. So I mean,
listen to this. In 1980, they played 156 shows. 1981, 129 shows. 1982, 185 shows. 1983, 138 shows. And in 1985, 102 shows. Mm-hmm. In 2023, they played 37. 2022, 57, 2019, 44, and the highest number that they played was 72 in 2016, 63 in 2011, and they kind of like, I don't want to say mailed it in, but they definitely cut back on touring a lot.
Well, you got to remember, back in the 80s, they were touring all over the States. When they come to the States, they do like 12, maybe 15 shows. They do a handful in South America, and they do a handful in Europe. They don't do the world tours anymore, and that's fine. That's what they don't need to. They hit the big spots. They know where they're going to sell, and that's fine. And like I said, in the States, it's maybe 12, 15 shows at most, and I get it. And I don't care how many they do. I'll go see the shows that are local, but it's got to be a better set list than that. To me, that's not an Iron Maiden set list that I'm interested in.
I got to say, that is a shame. When you see a breakdown like that, that is a shame to know that band, as iconic as they once were and still are to us
Sure.
on certain levels, have cut down on touring. Now, yeah, they're closing in on 70.
Sure.
I can understand that. But you know what? They look like they're very young for their age. They still look like they're in decent shape.
Yeah.
They're not falling apart like some bands are.
Yeah.
But I guess it just goes to show you that the hard rock and metal, the interest in hard rock and metal is waning.
Of course it is. Yeah, of
And
course it
it's
is.
a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah, listen. Of course it is. You know, as we get older, a lot of us don't. I mean, I don't look to run to shows. I know Frankie loves to still go to shows. I'm not big to go to a ton of shows a year.
Dude, it's not even so much a matter of being big and to going to shows. It's a matter of, it shows that there's nobody. If they're not playing shows, they're not showcasing themselves to new fans and other people, which kind of hurts the genre of music. Because after you read that list a couple weeks ago, there's nobody coming up to take the place of Iron Maiden. And when Iron Maiden stops doing their 50, 60 shows for a year, what happens? Who does that leave us? That's going to Priest, Metallica, Megadeth. When these bands decide that they're going to cut back on touring and they're not going to do it anymore, and Metallica are all in their early 60s at this point in time, I believe. When they say that, you know, we're going to cut back, who's next? Who's behind us?
No, listen,
Nobody.
Nope, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm with you. So like I said,
just mailing it in, you know, and finishing up. It's a shame, man.
Yep.
God.
Oh, that's why you got to enjoy it while you can. And then listen, we're in an age where you can go on YouTube and, you know, different places and find classic concerts. And I have a whole wall here full of classic concerts I was able to buy on DVD. And, you know, who knows? Maybe I can put them in my Xbox and I can watch some of these classic concerts that I never got to see. Some I did get to see. You know, I went to a concert with my son at the Prudential Center. It's got to be, God, better than 10 years ago, probably 14 years ago. I took Chris to see a concert, and I was able to buy a legit copy of the concert. You know, it was a bootleg, obviously, and it was a guy did a nice job, and it's got a beautiful cover, and it's got the Prudential Center on it, the day of the show, and I actually have the concert I sat in with my son to watch.
Who was it, NSYNC?
No, it was Maiden.
Oh, okay.
It was Maiden and Alice Cooper.
It was NSYNC.
Maiden and Alice Cooper at the Prudential Center. Great job by Alice Cooper, by the way. It was a really good show. But anyway, so to Frankie's point today, and it is a good one. And thanks to Will Cloak with some great subjects for us. But the Maiden and Priest thing, I think to Jeff's point, I would love to see them just keep playing concerts and probably not put out music. But if they feel the itch, by all means, I'm not buying Maiden stuff after Shinjitsu. It's just until they go back to the old chemistry, the old formula, I'm out.
Let me ask you something. When you say the old formula, here you are doing this for almost 50 years, Maiden as a band. Is there still any of the old formula, the old magic left?
No, definitely not. But the problem is they still play the old stuff. It still sounds great. I don't know why they can't write that anymore. Like, I don't know why we have to have this move to progressive stuff when, you know, when everybody knows that the first 4 albums are the most iconic metal. They're 3.5, 4-minute songs for the most part. They gallop, they just beat the shit out of you. And then all of a sudden we start getting Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. You know, you start getting these, you know, long-winded, you know, songs, and it got to a point now where you're getting 8, 10, 12-minute songs. It doesn't interest me. And
but even Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, as long and then drawn out of a song as it is, it was still a decent song. It kept you occupied. Yes, that middle was a tad bit long.
Very long, yeah.
Maybe a little bit more than a tad bit long.
Nico used to go swimming during it. He would leave the stage and he'd go swimming and come back. That's how long that part was.
Look at it. This is why Frank Catalano will never be live on a broadcast. Look at his last question. This fucking guy.
He's absolutely the best.
Frank, has anybody called you a dick yet today?
All Rocket Sports. That's Jeff and I'm Tom. We're here every Thursday night having some fun. Remember this Saturday morning, Jeff and I will be joined by our good buddy John Marhefka. We'll do another round of the Sunday Audible right here on this Hard Rock and Sports Network at 9 a.m. So tune in Saturday. We'll talk a little football, which we're going to do right now. We're going to talk a little about last weekend's games and this weekend's games. We're going to jam it in. But I do want to get a little football in tonight. I think we'll do a little less of that. We'll talk a little bit more about Bill Belichick and the coaching tree. And, Jeff, let's just turn our attention to football. Are you surprised by the fact that the two spots where everybody was pointing to for Bill Belichick to land, those jobs have now been given away with Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers and Raheem Morris getting the Falcons job? Why do you think that Bill Belichick today does not have a coaching job, and will he have a coaching job before it's over?
I don't think he's going to have a coaching job before it's over, Tom, and I don't think that. I think there's a couple different factors. I think he's on the wrong side of 70. That's one thing. Okay, he's a little older, so even if he comes in on a team like the Chargers or the Falcons that have some pieces, is he going to be there long enough to see it through? Okay, is he your answer for 3 to 5 years as a coach?
I think so, but okay.
He couldn't do it in New England. What makes you think he's going to do it here? He had Mac Jones come in the first year, had a good year, and then he fell off the planet in years 2 and 3 as the Patriots starter. 3, isn't it awfully strange how the Seahawks took Pete Carroll out of the head coaching position, and now Bill Belichick also can't find a coach in the NFL right now at this point in time. But the positions that are still left open are these places where Bill Belichick is going to want to go. Why would he want to go to a spot? Because I don't even know what's open right now, to be honest with you, so I'd be lying. But
the Panther job is still open.
I think they have their men.
Yes, they did hire somebody today. You're right. They did. I think the Titans job went. That went. I think the Seahawks job is still open.
And why?
That might be the last one.
Bill Belichick is an East Coast guy.
Yep, I agree.
Why would he want to go all the way up to Seattle?
Again, I don't think he's getting that. I think the one job, the Redskin job, I think is still open right now. That might be a place you could see him. Although I didn't think he'd want to go there, but that might be a place he can wind up. But go ahead, keep going.
I don't, like I said, I don't know exactly off the top of my head every place that's open, but I just don't think that this position is there for him. I don't think there's going to be something that he wants. Why would you want to start a rebuild or take a team that's in year 2 of a rebuild? I wouldn't want it. I would have just said, like, let me stay here.
No, listen, I'm a little surprised. I thought that he would get the Falcon job. I don't think Bill's too old, and I think he can coach. Do I think he can pick players and be the GM? I do not. I think that's the big thing that has changed. He did a great job. We've talked about it a million times on this show. Callahan, yes, he got that. He got Callahan got that job. But Jeff, we talked about it a million times on the show how the early years, maybe right up to the Brady times, Bill did a great job of getting rid of players, great players, just before they kind of washed out, right? They're just before they kind of weren't, and he was always recycling, finding that next, he had Welker, he died out, Edelman comes in. He always seemed to find that guy, and that stopped. Now, maybe it was because of Brady that he made him look good that way. I have no idea. And I don't think I think maybe part of the problem is he still wants that position and teams don't want to give it to him. But do I think Bill Belichick can still coach a football team? Oh, 100%. He's still sharp. He's still a great coach. I don't think he's a great general manager. And I think that's part of the problem. And I think it might wind up at this point where he either goes to TV for a year or he winds up as like president of football operations for somebody.
Yeah, but Tom, right now he's 71 years old.
Yeah.
If he goes to TV for a year,
yep,
that means he comes out at 72 years old. He's going to want to start doing a team at 72 years old. Traveling with a team 72 years old.
I know if you want to do it this year, you want to do it next year. I think the big thing is, you got to remember, Jeff, we talked about this in one of the chats. Think about how many coaches actually make it to more than 2 or 3 years. If you're there 4 years, you're pretty much an elder statesman in the league at this point. Most coaches get 2 years. So to me, if you're a team and you can get Bill Belichick in your building, let's say you tell him, Bill, we want you for 3 years on the sideline, and then you move up to football operations. You show up when you feel like it, and we'll use you as a consultant. I think he jumps at it. The question is, where can you do that? I don't know the answer.
Well, here's the thing.
What's up, Dig?
It certainly doesn't look like anybody wants him.
Well, that's a big problem, sure.
He ain't anywhere.
No, listen, that's a different point. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm a little surprised, but like I said, I don't think his age should be a factor in the sense that I don't think teams give coaches more than a couple of years anyway. So to me, if he came in and he put a nice coaching staff together, and you kind of had the heir apparent like they did with this Gerard Mayo in New England, you put him on your staff, you let him play coach behind Belichick for a few years, and next thing you know, Bill's moving upstairs and he moves on. What happens now? That's a great question. If he misses out this year, can he actually come back at 72 years old, Jeff, and jump on the sidelines?
What is he going to never mind Kenny? Would he want to? That's
a great question. I think if he doesn't get this job, if he doesn't get a job that he wants, and again, there's only a few left, will he take a job in TV? Would he just ride off into the sunset? I don't think so. I don't think the guy wants to walk away. I think he wants to stay involved. The question is, where can he go to be? I'll be honest with you. I think if he doesn't coach, he doesn't land with somebody, I think he winds up with the Giants. I think he'll wind up back in the Giants in the front office as president of football operations, and he will stay there. And listen, if Dable fell on his face next year, could I see Bill jumping on the sideline for the Giants? Maybe. I don't think Dable will. I think he's going to come bounce back next year. But I think he'll land with the Giants, and he'll be part of that organization until he figures out what he wants to do next. That's my gut feeling. Bill Belichick will be part of football operations.
You also thought he was going to go to the Chargers. He didn't. You thought he was going to go to the Falcons. He didn't.
I'm just giving you my.
If I was you and your gut feeling, you know what I would do? Go get some Pepto-Bismol.
Listen. I was not shocked he didn't get the Charger job because they needed an offensive guy there with Herbert, and I didn't think he was big on going to the West Coast. Just for what you said, I am shocked he didn't get the Falcons job. The only thing it tells me is he wanted more power than they were willing to give him.
That or they just didn't want him.
No, they wanted him. There's no doubt in my mind. They brought him back twice. There's no way in the world that I just think he wanted too much power.
Who canceled the second interview? He didn't do a second interview.
Yeah, he did. He did 2 interviews with the Falcons.
No,
Harbaugh canceled the second interview with the Falcons because he was getting the Charger job. Harbaugh canceled it.
I know somebody did it.
Yeah, Harbaugh canceled his second. Yeah, Frankie, he might, but I've seen him do some of the football TV shows, and when he's not being Bill the football coach, he's actually a very engaging person, and obviously he breaks it down pretty good. So yeah, do I think he's Mr. Jocularity? No, but you know what? I'm tired of the Tony Romos of the world. I'm tired of some of these buffoons who talk too much and don't tell you anything. I would love to see him do a game and break down a football game for you the way Bill Belichick probably can. I think it would be interesting, and I think it would be kind of old school. But I don't think he winds up there. I think you'll see him in a studio or popping into a show. Or I think if he doesn't have a job, he winds up in the Giant organization. That's what I think he winds up. I hate Romo too. Me too. So, but we'll see what happens. But that's the biggest thing. I mean, Harbaugh getting a job, not bad. That's a great job. I think Justin Herbert may have just saved his career, Jeff. Getting a guy like Jim Harbaugh to be his coach.
Well, yeah, listen, and unfortunately, he hasn't done much in the time that he's been in the NFL. Every year he's come close, and it just falls a little short. So here's hoping it works out for him. Justin Herbert, that is, that he gets to go to the next step.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, listen, I think that's here's the thing. I think what you just did is you might have just changed the balance of power in that division, where I think in the next year or so, with a good draft and some changes, I think they're at least fighting for that position, that division on a lot regular basis. And I think Justin Herbert's a really good quarterback, and it just probably needs a good coach. I think that's a great move by that organization. And I got to tell you, if the Falcons fire Raheem Morris in 2 years, I got to tell you, they're going to be the laughing stocks of football for not bringing on a guy like Belichick. Again, do what you have to do. But to me, you got to get a guy like that. If you're the Falcons and you had no real sustained success, you got to bring Belichick in.
Yes. So why would Belichick want to go to the Falcons when he had the same quarterback in New England as he would have in Atlanta? None.
No, because they have a very high draft pick. Two, they have a lot of talent on that team. I mean, there's a lot of talent there. They need a quarterback. There's no doubt. But there are guys on the market. Kirk Cousins is going to be on the market. You don't tell me you can grab Kirk Cousins for a year or so, draft a quarterback in this draft, and let him come up on. There's good there. There's and think about Jeff. Look at that division. It's horrendous. So if you're Belichick, all you got to basically do is get yourself a decent quarterback. You're winning that division for the next 2 years. That division is terrible. So to me, it's the perfect spot.
It's Raheem's job now.
Oh no, 100%. But if Raheem Morris is fired after next season, whoever's there should be tarred, feathered, and dragged through the streets. And you had a chance to get a legendary coach to fix your franchise, and you didn't do it. But listen, it could have been more Belichick's fault than it was there. So I'm not blaming anybody. But if you better be sure Raheem Morris was the right guy. But because if it fails. But let's see what happens with Belichick. There are a few jobs still available. He could wind up at the Redskin job. I don't think he does. But listen, I've been wrong so far. Let's see how it plays out. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left. I do want to get Jeff's take on this weekend's games before we close the show down. So, Jeff, let's talk a little football for this weekend. We'll leave last weekend's games to the Sunday Audible when we do that Saturday. Hey, Jeff, we talked about it earlier. I think this is some interesting football. I think I'll give you the first game, which is Ravens and the Chiefs. I don't know where to go with this one. I mean, to me, the Ravens are the better team, but the Chiefs just find ways to win, and they probably have the best quarterback in football right now. Some people say he's the best quarterback of all time. I'm not buying that yet, but he's definitely in the conversation. I like the Chiefs to steal this game, Jeff. I think the Chiefs are playing decent football. I think they have a good defense, and they got Patrick Mahomes, who I think is the best quarterback on the field and the best player on the field.
Well, like I said earlier, I could make an argument. I feel like I can make an argument for either one of the 4 teams that are in the position that they're in right now. But if I'm had to pick one, which I do, I have to go with you. I think that it's Patrick Mahomes' time of year, and the Chiefs. I think they have experience at this time of the year. I don't think the game is too big for them. And listen, Baltimore's been hot for a while. They come out flat. Patrick Mahomes gets them to come out to a 10, 14-point lead. It may be too much for them to come back from. So I got to go Chiefs.
Yeah, I think so too. Let me ask you real quick about but did you watch much of the Chief-Bills game? Did you see much of that one?
I was flicking back and forth.
Yeah, I was a little surprised how the Bills didn't play a better game. Way too many drop passes. And the Chiefs really should have lost it. But I got to tell you, Mahomes just makes plays. He just finds ways to win football games. So that's why I like him this weekend. The other game, Jeff, is probably the more interesting of the two. And I honestly, truly believe that the Lions are going to win this game. And I'll tell you why. I think they have the better quarterback on the field. I know everybody likes Brock Purdy, Jeff, but I think Goff is the better player. And I know C-Mac, we call Christian McCaffrey, is probably the best player in the game. But the Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are 2 good running backs. I think their offensive line is just as good. I think this is a really good matchup. The one negative is I don't think that the Lions defense is quite as good as the Niner defense. But I do think that the Lions have a little mojo going, and I like the Lions this weekend. I'm going to bet the Lions to win this one straight up.
I would love to see the Lions win, and I don't think that it's going to be that the Lions are going to outplay the 49ers. I think that the 49ers have to come out flat and not
beat themselves
game and beat themselves more so than the Lions beating them. But as long as the Lions come out on top, I'm okay with it, and I think that that's I'd like to see. That's what's happening. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with the 49ers. I think that they're going to be the better overall team and steal this game. unless they come out flat. They come out flat and they don't catch up because Lions show that they can move the ball.
Yes.
The defense doesn't look like much.
Well, that's the problem. I think you kind of got to hope that the Niners are a little flat offensively, and the Lions got to get out to a lead. They can't play from behind against that team. You got to get out ahead and then just run the football and play smart. But I don't think that they can shut down the Niner offense if they're on all cylinders, and they might not be. It looks like Deebo Samuel, if he plays, is going to be less than 100%. Kittle's been quiet all year, and McCaffrey is, he can be injury prone. So I still am not sold on Brock Purdy. He's got to win a Super Bowl. He's got to play big in this game, and in the Super Bowl, for me to let him take that next step, I'm picking the Lions in this one. I have this just gut feeling about it that they're just due to win a football game. So we'll see. I think it's going to be fun. Will you watch both of these games? Is there one you're gonna definitely get to the Lion game, you think?
I'm gonna watch them as best I can. Yeah, I think I actually have something to do on Sunday, but I'll be keeping track on it on the phone. But I'm gonna watch as much of it as I can while I can.
All right, cool. So I'll certainly have my day revolved around these two games. I won't be locked into the first one. I hate the Ravens. I will be rooting for them to lose because I hate them. But I will be all over the Lion game. I'm just hoping that it's a good one. I don't want to turn that game on, and next thing you know, it's 21-3 in going into the second quarter, and the Lions are basically flattened out of it. That would break my heart. To me, the worst thing that could happen is a 49er Ravens Super Bowl. I dislike both teams. I have to root for the 49ers. If it was Chiefs 49ers, would I root against Mahomes? See, I actually started to dislike Patrick Mahomes because of the way he acted this year. So I'm not rooting for him to win anything, but I got to see him beat the Ravens, if you can follow.
I'm kind of hoping that Baltimore gets in just so that the Taylor Swift craze
That's another reason. That's another reason, yes.
I hope that Travis Kelce goes out, gets drunk, and in a post-game blues, pounds her in the pickle box there, and they get upset with each other, and they move on, and we never have to see her in an NFL game again.
I couldn't. No, I said this to somebody. I don't blame her. I dislike her, but it's not her fault because she's not the one begging to be put on TV. She's just going to see a football game. It's the networks that just force us to watch whatever she's doing, and it's just annoying. And you're right for that reason.
But please don't tell me that Taylor Swift knew as much about football today as she did 6 months ago.
Agreed.
Okay.
No, I agree.
Started to taste little Travis. Then all of a sudden, her football IQ went through the roof, and I just don't believe that.
Well, listen, it's going to be some good football this weekend. I think it's going to be a little cold on Sunday, so maybe everybody be buckled in and sitting tight. It's not the same as division weekend where you got 2 games each day. They're all standalone. You got 2 games on Sunday, and then we get a break from football till Super Bowl Sunday. But it should be 2 good games. It's honestly, I think the 4 best teams. I think this is one time, Jeff, you could actually say the 4 best teams are still in it.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but I guess we have no choice because a lot of the other teams that seem pretty good are definitely not in it. So, do you have any boxes for the Super Bowl?
I have no boxes yet for the Super Bowl.
Oh, I wish you said something.
Why?
Well, I knew a couple. Me and my brother went in half on a box.
Oh, okay.
And I have a $100 box at my job.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've seen some people that I know online. They've kind of thrown it out there. I really haven't bought boxes in a few years. I've kind of just betting games, and I probably will bet the Super Bowl, and unless I hit a bunch of different parlays. But listen, we'll see what happens. But we'll be here Saturday morning. This week we'll talk about last week's games and this Sunday's games in much more depth. We'll talk about the coaching carousel a little bit more when we get together 9 o'clock Saturday morning with John Marhefka to do the Sunday Audible. We got about 2 or 3 shows of that left for the year. And in the meantime, we'll be back here next Thursday night, Jeff and I, to do another round. We'll be breaking into February when we get back together with you guys again. So by all means, I hope you guys have had fun tonight. This was a great show. Wrestling We got metal in there. We got some football in there. We didn't do any baseball Hall of Fame, which I'll hold till next week. But it was a great show tonight, Jeff. It was a classic hard rock and sports show.
A lot of fun.
Yep, and it was great to have Joe Cloak and Frankie and Pete showed up and Adam Hines, my man Adam Hines, and all the cast of characters who I saw Ted from Black Sasquatch. All the boys showed up tonight. Everybody's listening, and it's right. Thanks, Joey. Hey, Joey Cloak was popped in tonight. Joey, thanks for tuning in, my brother. But this is it for tonight. So again, guys, thanks to everybody who tuned in. Thanks to everybody who watches and listens, and really, we do appreciate it. We'll be back here next Thursday to do this all over again. So I'll end it by saying, so for Jeff Towinski, myself, and everybody at the Hard Rock and Sports Show, we say thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week, a great weekend, and a great next week. We'll see you back here next Thursday on the Hard Rock and Sports Show. Jeff, have a good one, brother. Talk to you after the air.
Later, man. Be good. See you later, guys.
See you later, everybody.